Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal. It's Friday evening, which means that it is smile time. And I've done one of those things where, I shouldn't play with my screen just before I broadcast. I pulled the emojis up so I could send a nice emoji to Jamie and Isabel, and I don't know how to get rid of the emoji screen now. So if anybody can tell me how I do that, I'd appreciate it because I'm not going to be able to see as much chat. It was just like, oh, how did I manage that? What if I pop the chat out? Will that help me? That might help. Yeah, that helps. Okay. But if you want to teach me anyway, that would be awesome. All right, so I popped the chat right out, so it dropped the emojis. If I put it back again, will it? Never mind. All right, so just to let you know, at lunchtime today, oh, thank you, Isabel. Isabel's saying it happens to me too. I feel so much better. We were talking at lunchtime today about making mistakes and how to forgive yourself. And so, this is one of those mistakes. Like, yeah, duh. But I can forgive myself because I was really trying to do something good at the time, right? And the way we learn new things is to make mistakes. That's what we were talking about. But if you have difficulty forgiving yourself about anything, I really would recommend that you take the time to listen to that broadcast. We actually did some really solid work at lunchtime today, and I know we helped a couple of people. And so if you are inclined to beat up on yourself, easy for me to say, and this is how I talk when I'm drinking coffee. Imagine what I do on wine or something stronger. So tonight it's smile time, and what I thought I'd do is make you all feel a whole lot better by what I did is I managed to find some pretty good blunders, mistakes that people had made that weren't quite the same as ours. They, they were really quite interesting mistakes, and I thought that you guys would enjoy that. And I've got three different categories. Um, Actually, I've got two lots of different inventions where somebody made a mistake, an oops moment, but it turned out to be a great thing. Because what I wanted to do is to show you that even though you totally screw up, and we all do, sometimes the learning from it is a really good thing. And then I've also got some major architectural failures, which I thought you might be interested in, where they spent billions of dollars building something incorrectly. And I wonder whether any of you would care to share with me on the rest of the world any sort of oops moments that you have had. I always think back, I don't know why. I always think back when I think about oops. I think back to the time when I was in my 20s. I was in my first apartment in London, and I invited a guy over to dinner. Now, you understand I wasn't much of a cook then, so this was a major thing for me. And I really wanted to impress him and cook this incredible roast, and got instructions on how to do the potatoes and got instructions how to do everything. And then he arrived, and I pulled the roast out of the oven, and he said, "Is that pork?" And I went, "Uh-huh." And he said, "Did you know that I'm Jewish?" um, oh gosh, listen to this one. Beth, you are always a delight. Beth saying, Beth works in a Dollar General store. And, she said that she did did a whole aisle in the Valentine's candy and everything. And when she'd finished, found out it was the wrong aisle. Oh, wonderful, Beth. But I bet you it didn't take you as long for the second time, the redo, because you knew exactly what was going to cause you a problem when you when you had to redo it. Um, and I hope that you laughed, Beth. I mean, other than the total, if you concentrate on the total waste of time and effort and everything else, you can have a miserable day. But if you can go, Nice one. Good practice. Let me try that again in the right aisle this time. It's a wonderful moment to laugh if you choose to. And as we know, so much of life is about do you choose to look at this a different way? Because if you do, then you might be really lucky. I'm noticing that I've got the reflection of my computer screen. I think that's what it is. Can you see that? Huh. That's my computer screen. That's my light above me. Actually, it's above me and to the front. And by the way, say hello and goodbye to the Christmas tree, because if all goes well tomorrow, that will be gone by the time I do the broadcast on Sunday. So I thought, would you like to start with the movies that people turned on? So Isabel's giving us the answer to the emoji question I had at the beginning. Below, we see a keyboard drawing. Yes, there was one there. Click on that. So that's back to the keyboard, away from, thank you so much. Do I dare do it? Or do I leave good alone? Because I've got the pop-out screen now. I think I'll leave good alone. I'll practice it later, Isabel. But thank you so much for finding out the answer. You are such wonderful viewers. You really are. You help me with so much. Just an update for those of you who need to know this or want to know it. I had an awesome visit down with Benji, Judy, and the children on Sunday. I went down on Sunday, and it was just, first of all, I got to celebrate Grampy's 60th birthday, and it was really nice to do that just quietly. We did it together, just like the five of us, and when the children, of course, there's nothing quiet when the children are involved, but it was just really nice, and we had some awesome steak that Benji cooked up, and then I got to play with the children a bit, and then I got to read them bedtime stories. And it's so funny because little Juliana, she is so she's really quite something. I think I'm not quite sure what to word this as, but I'll think about it. But they are allowed one story at night, and whenever I go there, I read a story. Well, I so enjoy it. I mean, it's totally selfish on my part. I don't want to stop with one story. I want to read a second one. And poor Juliana, she's looking at me, and she goes, after I finish the second one, she says, "Will you tell Mummy that you did it?" And I said, "Did what, honey?" And she said, "That you read the second story. We didn't ask you to." She's so scared of getting into trouble. And, this is not a household that does guilt. But you could tell it really worried her that Judy might think that, they had kept me up longer than necessary. Maybe Judy has said, "No, you don't keep MamaSal too long," right? It was adorable. You guys would have really loved it. And then, it was really sad because little Kia got some sort of stomach bug during the night. So, none of us got a lot of sleep that night. But it is part of the joy of having children, right? And the good news was she didn't pass it on. That was the scary thing. I'm going, oh, that'll be really nice if I'm trying to drive back. But the thing I was saying at lunchtime, and I want to repeat it today, if you want to know how caring that family is, and it is a family trait, I think. And it was so cute because Benji came to me and said, I'm going to drive you to the border. And I said, "What, honey?" And he said, "I'm going to drive you to the border." And I said, "Well, that's a long walk back." And he said, no, I'm going to have Chris follow us in another car, in that. I don't know if any of you saw the video of the car that he's got at the moment. It's really nice. Yeah, it's white and vroom vroom vroom, and I didn't get to drive it now. Anyway, so the wasn't that nice of him? He literally drove me just about to the border. I insisted that he stop at the last town and let me off there, and change cars. But And Chris came and drove all the way behind us so that they could, we had dinner together, all three of us, and then I sent them back home and I drove the rest of the way to Canada. It was because he knew I hadn't had a lot of sleep and he didn't want me driving at night, tired at my age. How kind is that? You know? And that is so typical of him. Okay, so where would you like to start? Would you like to start with some architectural disasters, or would you like to start with inventions that were a disaster that turned out to be okay? Um, and what did I do with the movie ones? Oh, did I put those away? Oh, that'll be a pity. Got to find those again. I hope I can still find them. Hang on one second. And I say that because I just want you to see that, mistakes happen all over the place. All right, so let me see. Oh, got to restore the chat. It's getting very technical, people. Hi, Aaron. Yes, actually, you know something, Sharon? You're a very smart cookie. That is exactly what he said. We did have some time talking, but he also knew that if he drove me up, we'd have 2 hours uninterrupted, driving back. And, that was really special. So, and, at this time of the year, I don't know if you know, I always ask him what his goals are for the year and how can I support you? Right? Because that's always, I want to know all the time. It's something that I do with Benji all the time. I want to know, what are you, because I know he's human. What are you procrastinating about that you know needs to get done so I can be a pain and keep asking you about it until you do it? And, we've done a number of things like write the book that way. And we're working on something else at the moment. But, it's a really good thing if you've got friends. And hi, Charles. Good to see you. If you've got friends, it's a really good idea to let them bug you about the things that you want to do. So, all right. Do I get any offers on what you'd like to hear? You don't really care, I gather. All right. So let's do some architectural blunders. Let's see how you do with those. Let me just get these up here so I can see. And the reason I say that is hopefully in this year, I asked at lunchtime if any of you have already managed to have a New Year's resolution that you didn't quite manage. It's January the 3rd. It is my goal, and I don't mind talking about it. It is and I'd like the support on it. Yes, Happy New Year to everybody. Good idea, Charlotte. My goal is to, I know it's pathetic when you see how many steps that Beth does, but I'm not going to do that to myself. My goal is to make sure I average in January at least 4,500 steps a day. And, I don't go to work and all sorts of things that normally put in a lot of steps. I'm just at home. And so 4,500 steps for me requires that I actually think about it and make an effort. Oh, Charlotte has already said she was supposed to start half marathon training on January the 1st. So will you be starting it on January the 4th? And I'm sure you've got a really, I'm sure you've got a really good reason for not doing it on the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd. And so let's So how about letting that go, and you will start training when you want to, and that's it. Something, Charlotte, I just said, I could not believe the weight I put on in the last 2 months of the year. And I don't care how much I blame it on cortisol and stress and everything else. It's like, it doesn't matter what I did to create it. The point is I need to get rid of it, and soon. Like, this is insane. Um, Right. So Sharon's saying her mom got an Apple Watch for Christmas. One day it told her to stand up and move for a minute. Yes. You know what I like about my watch? It has a great exercise on it to actually relax for 2 minutes. And if I get overwhelmed, which is going to happen more and more often because I've only got a couple of weeks until I start moving, I'm going to have to take the time to just press that button and make myself relax for a couple of minutes. All right, so Charlotte's saying she's going to train by walking because she's not a winter runner, and I think that's very intelligent because it's pretty dangerous if you're running in the snow and ice and stuff like that. All right, so let's have a look here. The first architectural disaster. Yeah, Beth's saying her watch needs to say stop, sit down, relax. Yeah, I quite agree, Beth. It does. That's so cute. All right, here we go. The Aon Center is the third tallest building in Chicago. It was completed in 1973. It was originally named the Standard Oil Building, right? When it was completed, the building was a visual wonder to behold. Thanks to a decision to to cover the whole of the structure in Italian Carrara marble. Now, the only thing is that Carrara marble is pretty thin. I want to tell you the building looked awesome for a while. Carrara marble is thinner than building materials normal used to clad buildings. And in 1974, which was 1 year after it had been put up, one of the slabs came away from the building and crashed into the roof of the neighboring building. An investigation revealed that it was completely unsuitable to clad any building in that particular marble, and it was all cracking and bowing out. Ultimately, the whole building had to be refaced with granite at a cost of more than 80 million. Well, it's on the outside, Charlotte, the actual outside of the tower, not on the floor, on the outside. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good oops. And so the next mistake you make that you are beating up on yourself, I'd like you to smile and go, at least it's not an $80 million mistake. Can you imagine being the architect that decided to put that marble on that building? Wonder if he's still in business, or her is still in business. And do they have insurance against that sort of thing? Okay, now, it doesn't just happen on buildings. So for those of you who've ever had children, or those of you who know people who've got children, which would be most of us, before when you go to a playground, before you put the kids onto a swing or onto a slide, you just check, to make sure it's not too hot, right? So, however, the designers of a playground in New York's Brooklyn Bridge Park managed to forget that just that little point, right? And they designed 3 play structures for children to climb on and built them out of steel. And the domed structures regularly became too hot to touch, never mind climb. They measured. I'm sorry to laugh because obviously this was dangerous, but they measured the temperature at more than 120 degrees at one point. One of the parents said you could fry eggs on them. I know. Ouch. Oops. The domes were replaced, which they presumably by something that everybody could touch. I don't know why I found that so funny, but you're going, yeah, very smart. Would you like to be the architect on that one? All right, so the John Hancock Tower Where is that? That's in Boston. Right. You ready for this one? Another architectural disaster. The John Hancock Tower, a 60-story skyscraper in Boston, was designed by a particular, I'm not going to read the name of the architectural firm, and it was unveiled in 1976. Apparently the 70s, I'm beginning to think that maybe in the 70s, some of those architects were smoking, good stuff. Anyway, it was striking because of its minimalistic appearance, and it won accolades all over the architectural community. But it unfortunately had a few problems. One major issue concerned its windows, which kept falling out and crashing onto the pavement hundreds of feet below. In the 1992 book, Why Buildings Fall Down, it was explained that this was due to unanticipated, repeated thermal stresses on the panels. Right? Ultimately, all 10,000 windows would need to be replaced at a cost of over $5 million. So the next time you accidentally drop the sugar or something, just go, at least it wasn't a $5 million mistake. And then, of course, that wasn't the only mistake. This building had real problems, right? The skyscrapers are meant to sway in order to absorb, strong gusts of wind. Have any of you been in one of those buildings when it does that? Scary. I've been there a number of times. This particular building, it swayed so much that it gave the people on the upper floors motion sickness. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Why am I laughing? Okay, so the Vidara Hotel and Spa in Vegas. I don't know if anybody knows about this. Anyway, you hope to find things like a mini bar, a gym, or close proximity to sightseeing or whatever. However, this particular hotel and spa, it had a very special feature called a death ray. Okay, the hotel opened in 2009 and featured a unique curved structure. You actually want to look it up, and it beamed the solar rays into the hotel swimming pool area. Very, very clever. Guests sunning themselves nearby were regularly singed. And one guy said it burned his hair, and melted a plastic bag he had with him. You might, you just, and it was all to do with the curvature of the hotel. I can see if I got a picture of it. Yeah, there it is. Okay, hang on, people. It's the one. Okay, it's this one. Can you see the curve on it? Well, it absolutely captured the sun. Why am I laughing? Okay, so now then. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge was let me rephrase that, was a suspension bridge that connected Tacoma, Washington to the Kitsap Peninsula. It was the third longest suspension bridge in the world when it opened in July 1940. Okay. However, 4 months later, it collapsed. You imagine that. You spent all this time building a bridge, and 4 months later. The cause of the collapse was the use of inadequate girders, and that were used to keep the costs down. How many of you are going, yeah, I know that one? They failed to keep the bridge deck in place, allowing it to, it swayed too much in the wind. In fact, it allowed it to sway violently in the wind. Apparently the situation was noticed by the construction workers who nicknamed the bridge Galloping Gertie. Now that should have given somebody an idea that this bridge, was not very stable. Um, and the name stuck when the general public crossed the bridge and noticed its similarity to a bucking bronco, right? A bit like you remember when I was on the suspension bridge not so long ago. Yeah, it actually fell down during a 40-mile-an-hour wind. Isn't that sad? I hope not too many people suffered from that. Um, all right, I don't want to read the next one because it's not fun. When I say not fun, a bridge going down wasn't fun either, but I really don't want to. I don't mind talking about ones that cost somebody a lot of money, but I don't like it when I have to, not on Smile Day. Okay. All right, so there was the MIT built a building, the Ray and Maria Stata Center, uh, and it was designed by an award-winning architect. It opened in 2004 and houses the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab. It also has the Department of Linguistics and Philosophy and the Laboratory for Information and Decision Systems. It was hailed for its logic-defying angles and walls that challenge the laws of physics. How many of you are already going, uh-oh? 3 years after it opened, MIT filed a negligence suit against the architect, claiming design flaws in the $300 million building. $300 million building. Okay. That had caused major structural problems. Drainage issues had caused cracks in the walls. Icicle daggers hung pendulously from the roof like deadly sash weights. Mold grew on the building's exterior. The school paid more than $1.5 million for repairs. The construction company claimed the company had tried to warn them of the problems of the design on numerous occasions and had made repeated requests for more suitable material. I want to tell you, we had that happen in a new bridge that we built here in Vancouver. We redid a bridge called the Port Mann Bridge, and it was an old bridge, but it was very heavily used, and so they doubled the size of it, and it was great, except they opened it just as winter came in Vancouver. And as you know, we don't get a really bad winter. If we get 4 or 6 inches of snow, we really panic. In fact, 2 inches gets us starting to panic. And then if God gives us another 2 on top of that, we're sort of going, really? And, I've been here when it's been 6 inches and, the whole place shuts down. So, but anyway, they opened this bridge at wintertime. And the first few cars that went down across the bridge were lucky to be alive, because the same thing happened. There were these giant icicles that were dropping off the suspension wires of the bridge. They were just literally going, through people's cars, into people's windshields. Luckily, I don't think we had a death, but we did have some quite serious accidents. So they had to shut the bridge down again and fix the problem. So you can imagine how much that cost. The University of Massachusetts Amherst is home to 3 distinguished libraries. How many of you going, which include the Music Reserve Lab, the Science and Engineering Library, Science and Engineering Library. However, the best known is the EB Du Bois Library, a 26-story structure, the tallest library in the US. Within 2 months of its opening, the building began shedding brick chips, a phenomenon known as spalling. I think it's spalling or spalling. There are various urban legends that persist about its causes, the most popular of which is that the architect who designed the building failed to take into account the weight of the books to be housed inside it. Think about that. What did they say? 26 stories high of library. You know how many books would be in there? While no official cause was given, 60,000 books had to be moved out of the building. It was later discovered, hi there, Nana. It was later discovered the building was sinking into a pond-saturated ground on which it was built. And I don't know you, but if I'd been the architect of that building, I'd be a little bit concerned, right? Here we go, the Kemper Arena, the Kemper Arena in Kansas City. That opened in 1974. Again, please notice the 70s was not a good time for architects. It had been the site of the 1976 Republican National Convention, and one raves for its unique design. Rather than employ some view obstructing columns, the roof was suspended from trusses on its exterior. Unfortunately, on June the 4th, 1979, 5 years later, the roof collapsed when a heavy storm battered the city. Luckily, it wasn't being used at the time, so there were no injuries or fatalities. We are very pleased to hear that. But it was a bit of a shock, to say the least. The roof had been designed to release rainwater slowly in order to avoid flooding the nearby West Bottoms area. This caused rainwater to collect on the top and pool anywhere that the roof sagged, creating excess weight. The roof was suspended from hangers. The strength of their bolts had been miscalculated. Once one single bolt gave way, many of the neighboring ones followed suit, and that's what happened. Okay. And again, back in Chicago, 1974 Chicago, they must have been having fun doing something, but it wasn't, doing their architecture. The CNA Center is a high-rise building in Chicago that opened in 1972. More of the 70s. The 44-story building was designed by the firm, and I'm not going to mention who it was. It was painted bright red, making it impossible not to notice it. Well, Jody, I'm glad you're enjoying the stories. How does this stuff happen? Who knows? You'd think these people would know better, right? It's scary. So I'm doing this because I'm trying to make sure you all know you're not the only ones to make mistakes. All right. All right. So it was painted bright red, making it impossible not to notice. In 1999, which was quite a while after it opened, a large piece of window came loose from the 29th floor of the building. The culprit was thermal expansion again. Okay, after an $18 million settlement, every one of the building's windows was replaced. All right, another one where that had to happen. So isn't that incredible? Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of news. Now then, let me go back to where my links are, because I found some really... those were the architectural ones. What I thought I'd do is give you some of the products that were mistakes that ended up being good stuff. Now, some of them we've talked about before. I will miss quite a few of them out, but there are a couple of them that I probably will mention again because it really is incredible how that happened. Did you know that the microwave was a mistake? I didn't know that. Did you? The microwave was actually a mistake. In 1946, a guy called Percy Spencer was busy working on a radar-related project. And he was testing this new vacuum tube, it's what they used to use in those days, and he discovered that the chocolate bar, the one that he had in his pocket, all right, was melting rather more quickly than he expected. Can you imagine? You're going, why is my chocolate bar melting in my pocket? Anyway, so he became pretty interested and intrigued by what was going on, and he started aiming the tube at different things, such as eggs and popcorn kernels. And what he realized was that the objects were actually getting cooked by microwave energy. And so in October 1945, that doesn't make sense. That actually doesn't make sense because this started in 1946, so it couldn't have been 45. I've seen an error here. Anyway, he filed a patent for the first microwave in 1945. Did any of you know that? I would have thought the microwave was sort of in the 50s when it first came out, but he actually filed the patent in 45. And the first, and now you're ready for this, people. You know how the first computers ended up being the size of a building. Well, listen to this. The first microwave weighed 750 pounds, and it stood 5'6". That's my height. 5'6" tall. Can you imagine that? Pretty big. The first countertop microwave was introduced. When do you think? Have a guess. When do you think the first countertop microwave was introduced, and how much do you think it cost? Let's see how you do. Try not to cheat. Just have a guess because it's fun. All right, so Jodie's taking a guess at 1974. I thought it was in the 50s, I must admit, but I was wrong. It wasn't. And Jodie's guessing 600. Pretty good, Jodie. It actually was first. Anybody else want to have a guess before I tell the answer? You actually guessed better than you think you did, I think. The first one actually came out in 1965. So you were only 10 years out there. And it cost 500. So well done, Jodie. Now, does anybody know that quinine, which we use for combating malaria, did you know that that was a really weird thing? And the Jesuit missionaries actually in South America used, quinine or quinine, however you pronounce it. In England, we pronounced it as quinine. So I don't know, maybe Americans pronounce it quinine because they seem to pronounce everything differently. Anyway, they can trace it back that it was being used as far back as the 1600s. Can you believe that? But they even then think that was passed on. They believe that this was actually, they were using the quinine tree way back, that the people of the Andes were using it way before then. So I thought that was really interesting. What they said was the original tale involved a feverish Andean, i.e. a guy from quinine. Okay, thank you. And you see it's quinine. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought it would be quinine here because it's always different. The original tale involved a feverish Andean, as is from the Andes, a man who was lost in the jungle and suffering from malaria. He was dying of thirst. He drank from a pool of water at the base of the quina tree. The water's bitter taste made him fear he had something that would make him even more sick. But the opposite happened. His fever abated, and he was able to find his way home to share the story of the curative tree. Isn't that amazing? You talk about somebody looking after you. That had to be it. So if he hadn't got lost, if he hadn't had malaria, he would never have found the cure to it. I think it's beautiful. And how about X-rays? When do you think X-rays were first discovered? Any guesses on that one? And again, it was an accident. Yeah, I don't know about you, but that struck me as somewhat funny. How would that be an accident? All right, so Jodie's taking a guess at 1945, and you are totally wrong, Jodie. But good guess, because you bothered to guess. I love the fact that you're prepared to put yourself out there. I was surprised to hear X-rays started in 1895. Are any of you going, No. Really? Okay, so 1895, a German physicist named Wilhelm Röntgen was working with a cathode ray tube. Despite the fact that the tube was covered, he saw that a nearby fluorescent screen was glowing. I don't know about you, but that's a bit, weird. Okay, so we saw this screen that was glowing, and the whole room was dark. So he's going, "This is weird. Why is this suddenly glowing?" Um, so he realized it must have something to do with the rays from this cathode tube. So he tried to block the rays, right, with various things that he happened to have there, and nothing seemed to make a difference. And then I don't know about you, but I wouldn't put my hand near it. But anyway, he placed his hand in front of the tube and he noticed. I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine being this scientist, right? You put your hand in front of this tube, and the next thing you can see all the bones inside your hand. Now, would you think? I don't know what I just smoked, but it was pretty strong. You know, you know what I mean? It's just like, can you imagine what that must have been like? What was that? And suddenly he could see all the bones projected. And then he had the sense to actually um, um, replace the tube with photographic plate to capture those images. All right. Now, I don't know about you, but you imagine trying to explain this to somebody. Well, and when he's in the pub, well, George, I was in the lab yesterday and I was playing around with this cathode tube. And you see, what I did was I put my hand, I sort of noticed that the room was dark. Why was he working in a dark room? One wonders. The room was dark and suddenly this whole screen lit up, fluorescently. Yeah, really, George. I can see Bob Newhart doing this one, And so that, because and then you never believe what, because I was so fascinated with it, I tried to block the thing from getting to the screen. So I was putting things in front of it. Yeah, really, that was clever. And then I put my hand in front of it and I could see all the bones in my hand. Now, if you heard that in the bar somewhere, would you believe him? And then he probably said, "Let me show you." No, I don't think so. All right. So how about this one? When do you think radioactivity? Well, Jody. I just try to imagine what it must have been like. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, right. You're saying, have another drink. You feel better. Okay, let's try this one. This one's a fun one. When do you think Velcro was discovered or invented? Well, it was a mistake. So do we call it invented or discovered? I think if it's a mistake, is it discovered? I think. Probably they never admit to it being a mistake. They probably said, "Well, I was trying to do that in the first place." All right. So any guesses now as to when Velcro started? And Velcro, if you don't know, the two different. All right, Lawrence now taking a guess at 1893. Velcro 1940, says Jody. That's a very good guess, Jody. 1941. Well done, Jody. All right, and it was actually found by a Swiss engineer, Georges de Mestral, who went for a hike in the Alps with his dog. And some of you probably have heard the story before. And those stupid burrs kept sticking to his clothes, and that made him very fed up, and also to his dog. You see, he hadn't actually gone out to discover Velcro. He went out to have a walk and got so angry because those stupid little burrs were sticking on him and his dog. And then, because he had that sort of a mind, he went, that's interesting. Let me have a look at those burrs and see, why do they stick? Why do they stick? And it had to do, with the grip on it. So what he did is he actually created Velcro, and it became so popular, after that, that even NASA used it. All right. Um, and then, as you all know, it has ended up being used on sneakers, on jackets, and so many more things. So I think that's wonderful. Now then, let's see what your knowledge is on sweet and low, the artificial sweetener. First of all, how many more times, how much stronger do you think sweet and low is compared to sugar? Do you think it's 100 times stronger than sugar? Do you think it's 50 times stronger than sugar? Do you think it's 500 times stronger? 400? What do you think? How many times stronger than sugar do you think sweet and low is? Actually, it's saccharin. So what's your guess? Jody says 50 times. Anybody else want to guess on that one? I'm going to carry on telling the story while you have a guess. All right. So it was discovered in, anybody want to guess? When do you think sweet and low was discovered? It's interesting because I, again, would have said in the 50s, but again, I'd be wrong. It's a good job I'm not taking this test. um, all right, Jody's saying 1960. It actually was discovered in 1878 by Konstantin Follberg, who was actually working on the analysis of coal tar at Johns Hopkins University. Okay. And what happened was, after a long time, Isabel's guessing 100 times sweeter. Okay. After a long day in the lab, he forgot to wash his hands before eating dinner. Naughty man. But he picked up a roll and noticed that it tasted sweet. And so did everything else that he touched. And that made him go back and have a look at what he'd been doing that day. It's actually 400 times sweeter. I didn't know that. So you need, that much less for it to give you the same sweetness, but you also get the aftertaste, right? He actually patented in Heinescher, he patented, that's not easy to say, saccharin in 1884. Now that's interesting. Because what they discovered as well was that the body couldn't metabolize it. So you could get the sweetness without the calories. Of course, what else you get, who knows, right? So any idea when it started being used? Hi, Nada. Any idea, Anisha, any idea when it started being used as a sweetener? Right? They discovered it in the late 1800s, but when do you think it actually started being used as a sweetener? Now, again, I would have been totally wrong on this one. Because I thought sweeteners were, fairly modern, as in my lifetime. But apparently, they actually started using it in 1907. Right? Imagine that. As a replacement for sugar for people with diabetes. Isn't that amazing? So here's the next thing. Jody, I'm certain that part of you is already going, these are the sort of mistakes Sal would make, right? She'd make a mistake and end up designing something that's weird. How about this one? Wilson Greatbach was building a heart rhythm recording device when he reached into a box for a resistor to complete the circuit that he was building, but he pulled out the wrong one. It wasn't the right size. Okay. He installed the badly fitting resistor and noticed that the circuit gave off these electrical pulses in the timing of a heartbeat. And what do you think he had just constructed? The first pacemaker. So what he did is, once he realized he'd created this thing that could actually be a pacemaker, he then worked on how to bring it down in size. And the first version of it was actually implanted into a dog in what year do you think? All right. What year do you think they put in the first pacemaker into that dog? All right, Kez. Hi, Kez. Kez, Kez is going back to the 1800s because that was being good recently. And you'd be wrong, Kez, but good guess. And actually, it was 1958 before they got it right, and they put it into a dog. So that is a more modern one. Now this one cracked me up. A guy called Albert Hoffman was studying lysergic acid, a powerful chemical that was first isolated from a fungus that grows on rye, which he first synthesized in the 1930s. The chemicals he studied were going to be used as pharmaceuticals, and many derivatives of them are still used today. That's the backstory. However, in 1943, he accidentally tasted his creation. And he said that while he was working with it, he was feeling a bit restless and uneasy. And so he decided to go home and rest a bit. And when he went to lie down, he sank, he said, into some sort of drunken state, which was not unpleasant, and which was characterized by extreme activity of the imagination. And he said, and I quote, "As I lay in a dazed condition with my eyes closed, I experienced daylight as disagreeably bright. There surged upon me an uninterrupted stream of fantastic images of extraordinary plasticity, vividness, and accompanied by intense kaleidoscope-like play of colors." How many guess what he had just made? It was, of course, LSD. And, we all know he was tripping. He was indeed, Jody. Yep. Now, let's see how good your memory is. What invention was first discovered in the 1930s, and it was actually meant to be a wallpaper cleaner? And it didn't do it very well. Anybody know what that was? First invented by Noah McVicker. Well, let me give you a clue. What they noticed was, even though it wasn't cleaning wallpaper very well, children loved it because they could play with it and turn it into different shapes, this wallpaper cleaner. Anybody got it yet? And by the way, the reason they needed wallpaper cleaner was because, of course, we used to have coal. I can remember having coal in our fireplaces. Used to have coal, and the soot would get on the wallpaper, so you needed something to clean that. Yes, Kez, you're quite right. PlayDoh. That's what it became. So it was an absolute failure as a wallpaper cleaner, but it turned out to be a hugely profitable toy for children that is still entertaining them to this day. How many of you are going, I'd like to make a mistake like that? Bring it on. What he did is the McVickers decided to remove the detergent that was in it and add coloring. And after Kay, the wife, said, suggested calling it PlayDoh instead of Kootel's Rainbow Modeling Compound. I don't know. I think PlayDoh sounds a lot better, right? Good idea, right? The clay that we know and love today was created. Isn't that amazing? All right, now here's another one. When was penicillin discovered? Anybody know when penicillin was discovered, roughly, give or take? Was it in the disastrous 1970s? Not a good decade for architecture, we found out. Or was it before then? Was it even in the 1900s? Let's see. 1840 is Jodie's guess. Not too bad, Jodie. Not right, but not too bad as a guess. It actually was only discovered in 1928, which is later than I thought as well. I thought it was discovered before then. So Alexander Fleming, as you all probably remember, what he noticed was when he was doing the experiments he was doing that in some places the bacteria wasn't growing the way it was meant to. He's going, why is the bacteria growing on the right side of this mold but not on the left? Right? And that was his confusion. Why is it growing on one side and not on the other side? So then he started to look at it a bit more. The mold actually turned out to be a rare strain of Penicillium notatum, okay, that secreted a substance that inhibited bacterial growth. Okay, penicillin was introduced in the 1940s. Now, I don't know. I thought that was way earlier, but no. And since then, we all know what has happened in terms of antibiotics. Are you bored yet, people? I don't know about the rest of you, but, my little mind loves these stories. Let me ask you, see how good you are on this one. If I told you that Viagra was never meant to be the little blue pill that it is today, any idea what it was originally designed for? It was a designer drug. It was designed to do something. But it wasn't to act as an erectile dysfunction drug. It was meant for something completely different. And it was manufactured by Pfizer, the chemical company Pfizer. And it was originally introduced this chemical called sildenafil. Sildenafil. No, yeah, I think Viagra is a lot better. No, it wasn't for raising blood pressure. Good guess, though. But it was for a heart medication. All right? Actually, in a way, maybe it was. And Nada, maybe you're correct on that. During clinical trials, the drug proved ineffective for heart conditions. All right? But, the men noticed it did have other little reactions. So then, now Pfizer wasn't stupid. Instead of saying we failed, they're going, let's listen to what they're saying. So then what they did is they decided to test the little blue pill on 4,000 other men to see if it was consistent, and it was. And they're going, can you imagine? Can you imagine the story around that boardroom table? Yeah, well, it actually failed miserably as a heart medication. But we got ourselves a moneymaker here, people. And didn't they just? So I didn't say when that was discovered. All right, but pretty interesting. Now, did you know that insulin was a mistake? You see, to me, it's amazing when you find this out. Back in the 1889, there were two doctors at the University of Strasbourg, and they were trying to understand how the pancreas affected digestion. So, unfortunately, they decided to remove the pancreas from a dog. I think they did a lot of experiments on animals in those days. So, anyway, a few days later, they noticed that flies were swarming around the dog's urine, something that wasn't normal. You see, the dog had diabetes by then because it didn't have a pancreas. Those two never figured out what the pancreas produced that regulated blood sugar. But during a series of experiments that occurred between 1920 and 1922, so that was 40 years later, right? Researchers at the University of Toronto, go Canada, were able to isolate the pancreatic secretion that they called insulin. The team was awarded the Nobel Prize, and within a year, the pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly was making and selling insulin. Isn't that amazing? So the poor guys that actually first noticed it didn't continue and are not multimillionaires. All right. So did you know that cornflakes were a mistake? So the next time you make a mistake, go, hey, this is how they invented cornflakes by accident. So it actually was a failure of cooking the wheat. Back in, when do you think they first started making cornflakes? Any ideas? And at the time, they were two brothers, John and William Kellogg. It was them. They did it. Okay. And they had a health facility. 1910, Jody's guessing. It was actually 1894, so pretty close, Jody. They actually they actually had a sanatorium. Cornflakes started in a loony bin. Okay. They had a sanatorium in Battle Creek, and it was actually a Seventh-day Adventist type sanatorium, and they were trying to come up with a diet that was really good for people. And one day the brothers put some wheat on to boil, but they accidentally left it cooking for too long. When they finally realized that they'd left it on the stove, they tried to roll out the dough that it was, left with. And what they noticed was the wheat actually, hi there, farmer, the wheat actually separated into flakes. And then they found out that they could actually bake those flakes, and cornflakes were created. They actually originally did it with wheat, but then tried it on corn, and that was even better. Which is why it's now called cornflakes and not wheat flakes. So, super glue was an accident as well. I didn't know that. Right. Henry Coover Jr. first discovered what we now call superglue when he was experimenting with a clear plastic gun sight for use in World War II. Farmer saying, I was an accident too. Yeah. He'd been playing around with a class of chemicals called acrylates, but found that the formula he came up with was too sticky, so he abandoned it. Years later, in fact, in 1951, Coover was again looking at acrylics, and this time for use in heat-resistant coatings for jet fighter cockpits. And his friend and colleague, Fred Joyner, spread one of the acrylic compounds between two lenses to examine it. And guess what? It stuck like glue. It stuck like super glue. And they, obviously they couldn't separate those two bits of glass anymore. And there we go. Super glue had been invented. Oops, it's too sticky. No use for something that's sticky. Let me have another look at that by putting two bits of glass together. There we go. A miracle in motion. And how about safety glass? The safety glass that we have on our windshields. Amazing. Any guess as to when safety glass was developed? And I'm going to tell you how it was developed while you guess. A dude, and I will give you the year when we've given people a chance to have a guess at that, called Edouard Benedictus, a French scientist, dropped a glass flask that he'd filled with a solution of cellulose nitrate, a sort of liquid plastic, and it broke and the liquid evaporated, but the glass that it was in didn't shatter. The pieces of glass were broken, but they stayed in place. All right, which is what the modern day windshield does when when it gets cracked, it shatters, but it doesn't come apart, right? And so it was the first type of safety glass that was developed. It was developed, by the way, in 1903. And today, of course, we use it not only for windshields, but for safety goggles and all sorts of other things. All right. And this one on my list was Vaseline. Yeah, I know. Wouldn't you like to have had shares in Vaseline? Because back in 1859, had you invested in it, a 22-year-old chemist, Robert Chesbrough, was investigating an oil well in Pennsylvania when he caught wind of a strange rumor among the oil rig workers. A jelly-like substance known as rod wax that consistently got into the machines and caused them to malfunction. But the substance had a good size too. He found out that the workers used this rod wax to soothe cuts and burns on their skin. And so he took some home with him to experiment with it. The product of his experimentation was what today is known as petroleum jelly or Vaseline. It was actually in 1859. Amazing, right? So I hope some of those made you smile a little bit. And by the way, let me know which one you found the most interesting of those. And then which ones did you find most interesting? And by the way, if any of you've got any news, views, and updates that you'd like to share, this would be a great time to do it. I don't know about you, but I didn't realize the microwave was an accident waiting to happen. I don't know why. I always thought that had been found a completely different way. Did you know that did you know that potato chips were actually a sarcasm thing? There was a chef at a particular restaurant, and he had made some potatoes for one of the guests, and the guest said, "Yeah, they're too thick. I'd like them thinner." So the chef apparently cut them in half and cooked them again and sent them back, and he said, "No, I'd like them thinner." So he went, "Would you?" Probably, and he cut them just wafer thin and then fried them and then sent them, and the guy went, "Wow, that's tasty." And the chef's name was George Crumb. How many of you going crumbs? Yeah. Um, he actually invented them by being sarcastic. He thought he was being funny to the client that wanted them thinner and thinner. So he made them so thin, they were wafer thin, and he created chips or crisps in England. Yeah. All right. So, and Post-its, you all know that was a mistake as well. And sometimes you need to make a mistake and then have somebody else sort of come up with what they need, and you're going, my mistake would have helped that. So here's the thing. The guy Spencer Silver discovered this pathetic he made this pathetic adhesive. It was just wasn't strong enough. And so he did that back in 1968, by the way. So, he just went, well, that's a bit of a flop, that one. Never mind. Um, and yet there was another guy um, that he met later on by the name of Art Fry. And he was frustrated because he wanted to keep notes in his Bible, right? But they kept falling out. And so you can imagine Spencer Silver's going, say that again. He said, well, I want something that I can stick into my Bible, but won't ruin the pages of my Bible. But all the glues are too strong. And he went, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And I don't know about you, but where would we be in the world today without Post-it notes, right? How many do you have in your home? So, it's just like, wow. um, did any of you ever play with a slinky? A slinky being that coil that keeps falling over on itself. Um, okay, no problem, farmer. So the slinkies were actually discovered by somebody called Richard Jones, and he was a naval engineer, and he was actually busy experimenting with some tension springs that he had, right? And he accidentally dropped one on the floor, and guess what it did? And he went, that's fun. Oh, all right. She's watching Catfish. We all enjoy that program. There you go, Nyasha. Well done. Thank you so much. Jody, can you please make a note for me? That topic we were looking for at the lunchtime broadcast for Nyasha was ways to deal with manipulative people. All right. So, Nyasha, if you've got any examples, don't talk about them now because it's not the topic for now, but email them to me. Give me a couple of examples if you can, and I will add them in there. And by the way, if any of you have got examples of manipulative people, feel free to send them to me at dearmamasal@gmail.com, and then I will do a broadcast on it. Nyasha, thank you for taking the time to find it. Both Jody and I were trying to find it, and we failed. Did you know Did you know that matchsticks were a mistake? Matchsticks. I mean, really. A British pharmacist, John Walker, was stirring He was stirring his chemicals with a piece of wood. And he noticed when he pulled the piece of wood out, there was this lump at the end of his stirring stick. And then he tried scraping the lump off, and you know what happened. Hello, matchsticks. Would you like to have had shares in matchsticks over the years? It doesn't say what year he discovered them. So I'm hoping that with all these, that some of you will realize that not only do we all make mistakes, but the greatest architects in the world make mistakes. You know, I was fascinated. Oh, Nana, is Nana still here or did she leave already? Because I wanted to thank Nana for the referral she gave me for the moving company, because I actually did call them and they did come to see me. And boy, that was a really interesting meeting. I really enjoyed meeting the guy that's the general manager of that company. Um, and it's so funny how these accidents happen, because he and I started to talk about um, being performers, and because he said that he used to be in music, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And how, in what way? And then I found out that this man, out of nowhere, apparently was sort of like the road manager for Anne Murray for quite some time. In fact, part not road manager, but part of rebuilding her career. And then then one day, um, he was phoned up by the big, I can't remember his name now, but the big talent guy, and he said, "I want you to do me a really big favor, Joe. I'd like you to go and there's a kid in Burnaby, which is close to where I live, within about half an hour. There's this kid in Burnaby, and I'd like you to go and listen to him, because I think he might be worth signing up." And so he said, "Fine, no problem." Um, and I can't remember how old the kid was, but he said, "By the way, what's his name?" He said, "Hold on a second, let me get that." And he sort of started rustling through his papers, and he said, Michael Bublé, apparently." And here's the story that he told me, and I thought you guys would love to hear this, about some people's success is mind-blowing. That he took Michael the first year to London, and he played some nightclubs, because Michael, even at a very young age, could sing just about anything out of the songbook of Sinatra or any of the crooners of that era. He just had a natural ability, and apparently he knew every one of those songs off by heart. And he just didn't need to look at music; he just knew them. And he said the first year he took him to London, and they played a couple of nightclubs, and it went pretty well, and that was fine. And then I think the year or two later, they went back to London, and this time they played some big nightclubs. And he said, it was amazing that it went from little nightclubs to 2 years later being big nightclubs, really big, well-known ones. And he said, and then in year 5, we went back again. And if any of you want to just feel this, because this is something that is a fact that you feel. By year 5 of his career, they took him back to London, and he sold out the Royal Albert Hall, which was at the time the biggest arena that there is to fill in London. And they filled it for 5 solid nights. They sold out 5 nights. Can you imagine that? From basically unheard of to that big a star within 5 years. And I was saying to the guy that that must have been quite something to be on that journey with him. And my question, because you know me, I'm always interested, Is he as nice as he appears? That was my question. Because I don't know about you, but Michael Bublé has always struck me as a very down to earth sort of person. I didn't see him as a prima donna or anything like that. He just struck me as very, that he doesn't take himself too seriously. Let's put it that way. And he said exactly. And that was his experience of him the whole time. And he said, he found it interesting with Anne Murray as well, that in her career, that she didn't like anybody that blamed other people, right? If you made a mistake, just own it. The thing we were talking about at lunchtime today, right? The sign of emotional intelligence is that you own your mistakes. You don't blame it on other people. And so it was just magical that I could have sat and talked to him all day. It was just so fascinating. Um, so I was telling him about my experience when I was entertaining, where I was in the green room, which is the room that you wait in before you go on stage, on a number of really big theaters across Canada. And in the green room, the artists all signed the ceiling, as some of you may know. So that it was like Kilroy was here, but I can remember that quite often, I would see the Beatles. Somebody had signed for the Beatles, or they'd all individually sign, or Elton John or whatever. So you could look at the ceiling and see who'd been waiting in that room. And I want to tell you, if you want to know what is really difficult, and I'm stretching here because I want to find a pen, is to sit there with the pen and go, wonder if I should sign that. And to listen to the voice in your head going, they signed it because they were in this room and you are in this room. And by the way, they only performed for an hour. You're here for the whole day and you've got a sold out audience. I think you can sign there. And I'm going, yeah, but I'm not the Beatles. Can any of you relate to that? It was just like, nah. And so what I did was, I think one time I did sign it. I can't remember where, the places, but once I'd signed one, I continued to do it every time I got into a green room where the signatures were there. I just went, I'm going to leave my name. Okay, so I'm not getting any comments at the moment, so I'm hoping that I'm still broadcasting. And if any of you have anything that you would like to discuss, and in fact, Nyasha, we could even, if you would like, start talking. Yeah, Jody's saying, yeah, sign it. But Jody, how difficult that is. And that is an ego thing, all right, where you're going, yeah, but I'm not really, up there with the Beatles and Elton John. And I had to keep reminding myself, maybe they signed it when they weren't well known either. You know what I mean? It is really something you have to understand. Farmer, I want to tell you, say goodbye to the tree because it's going tomorrow. I'm taking it down, but also I just want to let you know that I am moving. So starting mid-January, which is only days away now, I'm going to start moving. So this is pretty scary stuff for me. I have not moved in 20 years, and it is a lot of stuff that I need to move. Farmer's going, goodbye tree, starts chainsaw. Yeah, it actually isn't a real tree. And it's only half a tree. It's not even a full one. It's half a tree. All right, no problem. So have any of you also taken down your trees yet, or am I ahead of the game here? I want to tell you something, Farmer. I wonder, have you got time to talk to us about that? Farmer is saying, for those of you on the rebroadcast, that don't move to Australia. Most of it's burning. I understand that the Brits were not the first people to discover Australia. I think it was the French that originally did. And they thought it was just a desert, so they didn't bother to They didn't bother to colonize it, um, or even claim it. So my question is, this must be so scary that so much of Australia is burning, and with global warming now definitely a factor, that it probably is going to be even worse. Well, Lauren, I've seen the pictures. I can, I appreciate the fact that you're thinking of sending me pictures, but I've seen wall-to-wall pictures, obviously on the newscasts and everything else. But what struck me was this sounds to me like suddenly Australia went from being a pretty hot place in the center, but quite okay on the coastal areas, probably not in the north, but in the southeast corner and so forth. And southwest always struck me as, Perth didn't strike me as a fire zone, but suddenly out of nowhere is safe. And so I wonder what it's like to live with that fear. You know, I think that's what I would ask you, Farmer. What is it like? Farmer's saying we haven't had any rain in a long time. It's very dry and a lot of brushland. Yes. Hmm. I cannot imagine how scary it must be because, you're living on an island that basically is burning. And we are just going into winter, which means you are going into summer. Or you have just started summer, so you've got a lot of hot weather still to come. Right. And farmers saying sometimes when it's smoky, there's no sun for weeks. It can be scary and very hard to breathe. You know something? We had that happen here in British Columbia, farmer, where we had fires burning in the central part of British Columbia, but the wind was blowing the smoke down, and the smoke came all the way down British Columbia and into Washington State, where we didn't see the sun here. I'm very close to the border, but we didn't see the sun for weeks. And I know, it's horrible. Yeah, farmers saying we've just started summer and it's been extremely hot. So what would your average temperature be at the moment, in this summer now? Yeah. And so are you saying, Lauren, that you've got the same problem in Tasmania? Let me make sure I understand, because for those of you who don't know, Lauren lives on that little island, sort of hanging off the southeast corner of Australia. It's called Tasmania. So is that also burning? Because I don't think I'd heard that, because that would be even more scary, because that is such a small island. How many square miles is Tasmania? Wow, it's 40 to 50 degrees C at the moment. Okay, so farmers saying that Tasmania is pretty safe. It's very green and has lots of rain, just because it's that much farther south, right? But for how long? That is the question. Because Lauren's saying they also have some fires now. And, if you think about it, British Columbia is one dirty great forest, and we have fires here as well in the summer. So 40 to 50 degrees C. Wow. Let me just find out what that is in American, because, they'll never work that out. Let me just quickly find out what that is. Let's do 40 C in Fahrenheit is. Dum, 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 dum. That's 104. So it's anywhere from 104 to 122 Fahrenheit. That's how hot it is at the moment. Pretty scary stuff. Now, anything over 100, I think you all know, gets pretty dangerous. When you're talking about over 120, you are talking seriously dangerous. Wow. Pam is saying I work in a freezer. So I don't feel the heat. Yeah, until you go to leave, right? And go out of the building. So all right. So Lauren is saying that Tasmania is 68 and a half, roughly 68 and a half square kilometers. So, all right, we better do that one. So 68 square kilometers to square miles. Is that right? So it'd be about 6,000 square miles. 68,000. No, that's meters, not meters. We don't want meters. We want miles. Sorry. So 68, 1, 2, 3. I'll get this right in a minute, people. Just bear with me. All right, that's better. 68,000 square kilometers is about 26 and a quarter square miles. Okay, that sounds better. Knew the first one didn't sound right to me. So to me, this is Devonport where you were on the apple farm, farmer. Did I remember that correctly? All right. So farmer's saying that Australia has a different sort of heat from Tasmania because Tasmania is that much, more south. And then it changes again by the time you get down to, New Zealand. North Island, New Zealand will be different again as well. So, to me, it must be so scary. And my question is, Farmer, I don't know what the population of Australia is these days, but I am certain they did not budget for a fire to basically be covering, the main parts of Australia. How do they pay for all of that? All right, so it's interesting. Farmer's saying today Tasmania is about 20 degrees C, and where he's living, it is 40 degrees C. And you're on the coast, Farmer, aren't you? I thought you were on the coast. Did I get that wrong? Well, I don't know how anybody could have planned the financing for something as catastrophic as this. You're an hour inland. All right, so you're pretty close to the sea. You're not beach, you're not down the road to the beach, but you're close enough. That's not too far away. But for it to be that hot, that close to the shore, yeah, an hour away from the shore, that is, if you were sitting central Australia, that would make a lot more sense. But you aren't sitting there. You're still, within the sea breezes sort of area. So, wow, that is pretty scary. By the way, for those of you who know Ozzy, he's finished his studies. He went back to school to go learn something. And it's, something that he wanted to study. And so then I asked him, well, what's your next plan? Because he's doing stuff in stages. And he said, now the next plan is to pay for the schooling he just got, which I thought was really cute. But I am pleased to tell you that he is alive and well and still has his sense of humor. And, I let him know we all miss him. And he's welcome back anytime that he cares to, come visit. I also heard from the Brit, just so that you know, and his girlfriend has been visiting him, so he's had a very nice Christmas. In terms of the fact that she came to visit for Christmas time, I'm not sure when. Is it Lena? I think. Um, I'm not sure when she's going back, but she has been visiting, so he was very happy. Um, who else have I heard from? Oh, I heard from Lizzie. For those of you who know Lizzie, and I said Happy New Year, stranger, and she said that she was really, she said you're right. I have been a stranger, um, but she just has had so much bad luck. And I have to believe it's all going to turn out for a good reason somewhere along the line. But now the company that she joined, which had been going for 40 years, suddenly um, isn't there anymore. It collapsed. So that's really scary. So, Ozzy was telling me that he had applied while he was still doing his studies. He applied to, think he said, 40 different jobs and only got interviewed once. That tells us how difficult it is these days, to get a job. Or they all heard about Oz before he got there. So Farmer's saying that he had 2 days off for Christmas, for those of you who remember Farmer. So you didn't have a chance to have a family Christmas, just with Tracy. Well, you know something? Um, how far away is the family? They're a few hours away from you, aren't they? I'm trying to remember. I seem to remember that they are, significant hours away from you. They're not like half an hour down the street. They are, like half a day traveling or more, right? If I remember correctly. At my age, that's difficult. You know, I heard horror stories, Farmer, about the koala bears, and how many of them must have been lost because of these fires, and all the other um, animals. And I don't know why, and I know that sounds stupid, but a few snakes going missing, I don't seem to mind so much. But koala bears, why is that different? And isn't it? Do any of you feel the same way? It's like a couple of fried snakes is one thing, but the idea of all those koala bears, and it's the same problem, Sal. Why do I feel more for one than the other? I don't know. Maybe I'm not the only one. Hi there, Rinsky. Good to meet you. Thank you for popping in. Are you also anywhere near Australia that you're aware of this, or that you picked up on this? Welcome. So yeah, Isabel saying that, they seem so sweet and it's so sad. Yeah, but quite honestly, it's just as sad for a snake, right? But I don't feel the same way. Does that make me a bad person? It's like, you want to burn a few cockroaches, as that's fine. you know, um, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I am definitely got a warped mind, haven't I? Yeah, I cried when I saw the video of the koalas as well. And like thinking about all the kangaroos that must be lost. Um, Tell me something. Do kangaroos only, other than in zoos, are kangaroos only indigenous to Australia? They're not anywhere else, right? All right, so Kez is saying the koalas only eat one kind of gum tree, and a lot of them have now burned. So they're in serious danger of becoming extinct. Oh, isn't that heartbreaking? Yeah, I think it's, and by the way, Rinsky is telling us that he or she is from New York. And it's always great to welcome anybody, but particularly from the East Coast. So, yeah, I think it's heartbreaking. And I just don't know how anybody can say we don't have global warming when these are such evidence of it everywhere. Um, we are now in January, and we have not had snow yet. Normally, we will see snow late November. Not a lot, but we have, as far as I know, we have not seen one snowflake this year yet. Now, you know, the law of averages says the day that I move, we'll probably see 6 feet of it. But, at the moment, we have not seen, where I live, we have not seen one snowflake yet, and it's already January. And so, talking about that, because it's something that we do at this time, let's do the countdown that I forgot to do at lunchtime, and I apologize for that. Let's just see what we've got here. For those of you in America, you've got 10 months and just about 11 months until the next Thanksgiving. Canadians have only got 9 months because, we do ours in, okay, Farmer, no problem. We do ours in October. Easter, for those of you who celebrate Easter, is just 3 months away now. Spring is only 75 days away, or autumn if you're in Australia or Tasmania. We have just 64 days until the clocks move again. That's just 2 months away. For those of you who know about Mercury being in retrograde, that's going to happen just after I move, which is mid-February. Well, I will be in the house and own it by mid-February. I'm actually going to rent it for a month so I can start moving my stuff in first. Valentine's Day is just a month and 11 days away. Isn't that scary? I am 1 month and 8 days away from owning my new home. Thank you, Rinsky. I appreciate that. It's so difficult for me. I've lived here for 20 years, and to get up and move to a new place is incredible. After you've lived somewhere for 20 years. But, I was talking about the guy, the moving guy that came to talk to me. And one of the things I hadn't thought about, but he mentioned to me, he said, they're beginning to see a really different look to moving. He said, for so many years, we kept moving everybody with their big, heavy furniture and so much of it and all the stuff. And he said he is really seeing that people are not just downsizing, as I am doing, but they are minimalizing. No longer do they have the huge, stuff, the huge heavy furniture that they used to have. Now less is more. And, we're learning to live more minimalistically than we did. We no longer, how should we word that? We no longer set our value by our stuff. All right. Now we set our value by the life that we can live, by not having as much stuff. Of course, it's going to take me the rest of my life to finish downsizing all my stuff. So, if any of you have made any New Year's resolutions, feel free to share them. I definitely am on a path to obviously move. That's my immediate thing. But I'm also seeing the move as part of my fitness program. For example, I said that I was going to do so many steps a day, and I've got to do another 1,500 before I let myself stop this evening. That's what I do. When I've reached this level, then I can relax. It is now nearly 9 o'clock in the evening here in British Columbia, and I've got another 1,500 steps to put in before I rest. Now, you might say, that's a lot of steps, Sal, and it is. But funny enough, if you are packing things up, if you are cleaning things, if you are doing something, it's a lot of steps if you're sitting on your backside, binge watching some program, which I've been doing, that then it is a lot of steps. But if you're actually busy doing stuff, which is what I'm going to do as soon as I finish the broadcast, I think I will do it before midnight. So, and also knowing that the more I do, the quicker I can go to bed. So I don't know if any of you have got any New Year's resolutions. And if you'd like to share them, let me know. And by the way, if you would like support in them, let us know, because what I could do is then have a database. Maybe I'll put up a little poll where people can put in what their goals are if you would like support, so that, we can sort of do the event calendar, but, see the progress that people have made. So let me know about that. Jody, if you could make a note for me, maybe Tuesday, it would be a good day for me to possibly put up a note about that. I'm a bit busy between now and Tuesday, so I know I won't get to it by then. And by the way, some of you know that I have always celebrated Christmas in my house when it suits us, not on a given day, because it's always so busy at Christmas time. And so you'll be pleased to know that on Sunday evening, after I finish the Sunday broadcast, Yvonne, Wade, Papa, and I will celebrate Christmas at last. Jody's saying her goals are to be back into intermittent fasting and keto and to spend more creative time. Okay, excellent. Right, great question, Rinsky. Farmer, I don't know if you're back from the smoke break. He might not be back yet. But that is a really good question. Rinsky is asking, can we as humans come together and plant gum trees to help save the koalas? Now, that would mean traveling to Australia or maybe setting up, I'm pretty sure the World Wildlife Fund, let's look into that. Why don't we do that? Let's look into whether the World Wildlife Fund has started up something to help us. Maybe we can contribute. Okay, no problem, Yasha. Sleep well, honey. That's a really good question. Yes, let's not be sad. Let's be proactive and do something about it. Very good point. And definitely what I will do. Yeah, I tell you what I will do. Rinsky, do you follow me on Facebook and Twitter? Because what I will do is we will look into that and we will let people know on Facebook or on Sunday when we do the broadcast. All right, Isabel wants to read more books, trying to be more zen. Good girl. Hi, Pia. How are you doing? It's 22 in Tasmania, but it is 40 in Australia. That is the scary part. So, Pia, great to see you. So I'm about to get out of here as well. Jody, can you please do me a favor? I'm sorry to ask you. Can you just make a note that Isabel is reading more books so we can check on that? And who else answered? Let me just look here. Jody, you're doing more intermittent fasting. Let's get your goals on there as well. 38 degrees C in Queensland. Okay, Jody, just to let you know, I found today that I was trying to see I was trying to see how I'd done on my intermittent fasting, and I was at 15 hours and 20 minutes, and I am going to do 16 hours. Now, what am I going to use to occupy my mind for that 40 minutes? And I went out for a walk, 20-minute walk. That used up some of the time. And then I came back and food prepped, Jody. And I thought you'd be so proud of me because I was so proud of myself. And I'm going, I can food prep. And, that took the time to do that. So I made it to, I think it was 16 hours and 4 minutes, And not only that, but the first meal I had was carrot and celery juice with some Metamucil in it. So it's my first, I call it my Drano mix. So that's the first thing that I had was carrot juice with celery and Metamucil. So I'm doing what I can, people. This being obese is not my idea of where I want to be right now. I definitely am doing what I can. And I'm hoping, do any of you also have this problem? I keep thinking to myself, any minute now, I will not run across another jelly bean little stack that I had got ready to give to somebody and I didn't. Therefore they're looking at me going, "Are you hungry? I'm a jelly bean." And I've got 20 of my friends with me. It's like, or I've got 4 plates of Christmas cookies that I didn't give away, that I thought I was going to and I didn't. So this is like, I'm just being really careful. What I'm doing is every night after dinner, I'm allowed 2 cookies. That's the discipline I'm trying to keep to. It's just like, it's so difficult. But if I keep to it, I will lose weight. So that's what I'm desperately trying to do. All right. So I found out as well, Jody, and just a reminder here, that I promised the viewers that we also would do some work on budgeting. And I think that one is one that we might want to do closer to the beginning of the year. So I think I might do that next week, is do something on budgeting our finances. Yeah, Jody's saying her Christmas cookies are finally finished. Yes. And by the way, Jody, there's one cookie, hot chocolate cookies or something that you made. Definitely that sounded like there's something I would want to know about for next year. Maybe we should create a Dear Mama Sal viewer cookbook for Christmas. All right, so Farmer's saying you need at least 5 cookies and a chocolate hot drink. Yeah, hot chocolate, right? After dinner. And I'm just trying to think who else I have heard from. Because some people, I wrote to quite a few people over Christmas, even ones that I haven't heard from for a while. And some did write back. All right, Jody. So I'd love to see the recipe on those because I didn't catch it at the time that you were making them. So feel free to share them with me, and we'll put them. We'll start. I tell you what. We'll start a Google Sheets, a Google spreadsheet or something, with the cookie recipes. What do you think?
So
We can do that. All right. So there we go, people. Hopefully you smiled a bit and you remember that, you're not the only ones that make mistakes. Some people have made some much bigger mistakes than you will ever make. And, if your mistakes are purely about emotional stuff, then as we said at lunchtime, keep working on correcting that and get the support you need, whether it's here, when we do the broadcast, or whether it's formally with a therapist or something. Get the support you need. If you are causing yourself emotional distress, if you think about it, the word disease is dis-ease. All right. And, if we're doing that to ourselves, that is really cruel. And I wouldn't want it for you or anybody else that I care about. All right. So Kez is saying, that her goal is to spend less, cook more healthily. Her mom bought her wax food wrap. Yep. I've got a comment on that. And you want to plant 100 trees. You live in Brisbane. Wow. That is awesome. You went and planted 100 trees. All right. So Kez, you can tell us perhaps, write to me and let me know where we can contribute to that. All right. And then I will post it up on the Dear Mama Sal page on Facebook. That is awesome. Thank you for letting us know. By the way, one of the things that I've done, and I'm going to be doing I'm going to be doing a broadcast on it one day because I'm collecting little tips. But one of the things I found, if you want a way to stop using as much plastic wrap, how many of you would like to not use as much plastic wrap? I really have a very simple answer for that that surprised me, that I even thought about this. But what I found out was that during the course of all my shopping, Amazon shopping, and everything else, I get a lot of big plastic bags. And what I do is I now wash those big plastic bags and put a whole plate inside a big plastic bag and put it in the fridge. I don't use nearly as, I still use some, but I don't use nearly as much plastic wrap as I used to. I just started saving the bigger plastic bags so I could put the whole plate in, or a casserole dish in if I needed to, or something. And it really has changed the way I use plastic wrap. So think about that. And by the way, I started the broadcast by saying, if I didn't today, now I did it at lunchtime, but as of January the 1st, Vancouver, British Columbia has banned, we no longer use the white foam, right? All right, so farmers saying here in Australia, they took away the free plastic shopping bags and now they make you pay for, we've been paying for plastic bags for a long time, farmer, and they will be eased out, I think, in another year. All right. So, Isabel, did that make sense? So instead of using the plastic wrap, use a big plastic bag and just put stuff in, rather than wrap the plate with plastic, put it in a plastic bag and seal it. And when I say seal it, depending on the size of the bag that you've got. All right, so Rinsky's saying that you can't get bags at the food stores anymore for about 2 years now. Yeah, we will phase those out completely in I think another year. I don't know how we're going to live without them, but yeah, we will find out. Quite honestly, I can remember the day that they brought in all the different bins for recycling and organics and garbage, and really, I thought we were going to have a world war in my neighborhood, because people did not want to make that change. They did not want to have to sort out their garbage. And now when I travel, I hate it, because where I'm going, they don't have organics collected. So either you've got to throw it away, or you've got to have your own composter. And so for those of you who are thinking about that, I've got this great idea that I'm thinking, that. What am I going to do? And what I've decided is I can't remember, because I forgot to check whether my new house has a garburator in it, where you can just throw it into the sink and press the button and it, But what I remembered was I've got a really good liquidizing type blender. And I'm just going to, if I need to buy a second one, I will, and just literally throw my food scraps into there, not the bones, but the food scraps into there. And then just once a day, liquidize it, or twice a day, liquidize it and pour it on the garden, or, do something useful with it. So we will be doing lots more tips and tricks. Well, Rinsky, that's what I thought. What's a garburator? It's a giant blending machine, really. And so I'm going, I can do this. And I do know that my place does have a composter, but I'm thinking about getting to it in the winter. Might not be too much fun. So, so I don't know how long you've known me, Rinsky, but I've got a plan B coming up. I'm going, can I pour it into a pipe that would lead down to where that is? you know, Jody probably is laughing because Jody is my admin and she knows that I come up with these weird ideas, and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great to be able to open up a little hatch in my kitchen and pour that mixture down and it would go down the side of my house and into the composter? How many of you can see what I'm saying here? It doesn't have to be, I just blend it, open it up, down, and there you go. It ends up in my composter. To me, that would be very useful. Now, I've just got to think about that and talk about it, and I probably will start. I probably will start a whole thing in the place where I'm going to be, where everybody's going to want one. So maybe I need to find somebody who can design it with me, and then we'll sell them. Because it always strikes me, I would like it to go back into the earth rather than down into the system, because it's a septic system. So I definitely don't want it all going on there. I'm going to have to relearn how to live on a septic system, because this place is off grid, and so it has its own septic system and its own water. So I'm going to have to change quite a bit. All right, everybody. So hope you've had a smile this evening. I hope we've given you not only a reason to smile, which we did at the front end, but also some reasons to think. And we will find out a little bit more about how to save the koalas and the snakes, and get that posted up for you on the Facebook page. And in the meantime, please, the topic really is about, please forgive yourself. All right, go to the Save the Koalas website and you can donate and help plant a tree. Okay, we will do that, Kez, and we will put it up on the Facebook page for our viewers. And I will also, encourage everybody to put it up on their personal ones as well. And so hope you've all had a fun evening. We will be back on Sunday for Soul Sunday, where we will meditate a little bit. Well, if we stay on track, we will. But you never know, right? And wish me luck, because I am seriously in packing mode now. This is no longer, I think I'll pack soon. This is, I better keep packing or else I'm going to be in trouble. So big hugs to you all. Thank you for being here. Remember to forgive yourself every day, and preferably forgive yourself every hour. And keep remembering, you're not the only one in the world who makes mistakes. And the emotional mistakes we make, we can't change things. What's gone is gone. We need to apologize and move on, and knowing that some people will accept our apology and some will not. And that is the price we pay for being human. So have a great weekend, everybody. This is DearMamaSal saying see you Sunday, and bye-bye for now.